that apparently everybody does. We most boys didn't do that poem, but I was just always so called to Still I Rise. It just to me gave me such a sense of confidence and really just kind of built my character. So that's one of the things that really I related to. For you, we took a turn in the sermon and it was more about courage and looking at her courage and how courageous she's been. What does courage mean to you?
This is going to sound so cheesy. I go back to memories with my grandmother when we watched John Wayne movies. And courage is being terrified and saddling up anyway.
Ooh, I like that.
So it's that there was a scene in one of his movies where this woman who is like a preacher's widow, and she's being threatened and told to get out of town, and she's standing there with a rosary, and she just starts reciting Psalm 23 while he's shooting at her feet and like trying to scare her away, and she's like not moving.
Wow.
And that to me is both physical courage but also moral courage, because she was like, no, this is my house.
Yeah.
This is the place that I lived with my husband and that we raised our family, and this is where we are.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be bullied by some random dude coming to my town and saying I have to leave.
Yeah, yeah.
And that scene stands out to me even as an adult when I was probably 7 when I watched that.
Yeah.
But that to me was, when Leslie was speaking, that was what came to mind, was being terrified and knowing what's coming, but sticking to your guns, even though you know what's about to happen and it's
Right.
not going to be good.
And say that again. Courage is saddling, because I like that. Say that.
Courage is being completely terrified, but saddling up anyway.
Saddling up anyway. I love that. I love that. I feel like courage for me has been something that is a muscle I have to work on, because there are some things that I have the courage to do that I feel like I'm, even the music ministry, this is courage, because I don't have like a choir directing background, but I've been in youth choirs. I've been in choirs all my life, and I know what I want things to sound like. I know what Leslie wants things to sound like, so I've just taken cues, but I know that takes courage. I think that for me, where my courage, where I need to continue to work that muscle, is just in my life and thinking about what I want to do with myself. So especially when I was wanting to do a lot of on-camera work, I could have been using Instagram and YouTube, but it's something that I sometimes don't have the courage to do. And I think it's crazy that something I'm not as confident in as in worship leading and singing. I can do that all day. But the thought of putting out myself and things I want to do, I don't always have the courage for that. So I think it's interesting that Maya talked about that it's a muscle that you have to exercise.
Yeah.
Do you feel talk to me about a time in your life where you felt like you had to exercise the muscle of courage? And that's a question for everybody in the chat. I'd love to hear a time when you feel like you've had to exercise your courage muscle.
That's a hard question. I think the last time, or the first really big time that I had to be courageous, was about when I was a teenager. Because I picked a church to start going to, and Mom said no.
Wow. Because of doctrine?
Because of doctrine, because of a history with that particular denomination that I didn't know about before I chose it.
Yeah.
And I chose that church because it was the first church where I didn't feel patronized because I was young. And so, you've got to honor your parents, and I stopped attending. But that was when I started smuggling Bibles into my house, because all I had was the King James. That was it. And a 16-year-old trying to read the King James with no frame of reference. It was an adventure. I started at the beginning. By the way, if you've never read the Bible before, don't start at the beginning. Start with John or Matthew. Don't start with Genesis, because it doesn't make sense if you don't know what you're looking at. But that was the first time that I felt I had to really have the courage of my convictions and stand firm in something, even while understanding that I could not do everything that I wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And I had a history teacher Kent Woolley, who took his 30-minute lunch break to go to Half Price Books and buy me an NIV that I could put in my purse and an NIV study Bible so that I actually knew what I was looking at to give me a frame of reference. And like those were things that I will never forget, because that wasn't just my courage. That was him as a teacher putting his certification on the line. Because if my mom had found out and like raised hell, he would have been done.
He would have been done, yeah.
But he did that fully knowing the possible consequences, fully knowing that I was seeking assistance.
Yeah.
And he did it anyway.
Yeah, yeah, wow.
And that's
Courage
what
on
I think
both
of.
sides.
Yeah.
Courage on both sides. I feel like I've had different times when I've had courage. I think it took courage to leave Beaumont and head straight to New York City.
Yeah.
I think that took courage. I think
a big
that
leap.
just kind of figuring out how to chart my own path continues to take courage, because
Yeah.
I think that I always knew things I didn't want. I think being able to stand up, last year my father passed away, and our relationship was complicated always.
Right.
But I think that being young and being able to have the courage to kind of express to him who I was and to like live unapologetically, I think that has taken some courage.
It's a lot of courage.
Yeah, I think those have been some times in my life that I think that I've had courage. And like I said, I think the music ministry is something that I have courage with, because I'm putting myself out there and thinking that, it's going well. So yeah, that's one of the things.
I will go ahead and affirm that. Yes, it's going well.
Thank you.
As one who has a degree in choir directing, it's going really well.
Thank you.
You're doing really well.
I appreciate that.
You're doing
Antoine
very well.
says, I have to exercise my courage muscle every single time I'm asked to do public speaking. Interesting, because Antoine, when you did when you did coffee hour, like you were just a
That was
natural. Like it was
awesome.
just like boom, 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 boom. So that's really interesting that that's an act of courage for you. Isla says, when I was the only one in my class, I wanted more students that looked like me, I told them. So I guess the courage to like look for and call for diversity. I like that.
Advocating for yourself.
Yeah, advocating.
Yeah, that's really big.
I guess that's another thing. Like this week, I've had the courage to call out when I think, especially as a recruiter, I have the courage to call out when I think diversity is not mattering to a person. And so I think that that's something else that's been new for me, a new voice I've developed, and just hiring, just to be able to say, okay, now why are you evaluating this person differently? Do you understand why your team needs to be diverse? I think that does take courage, because especially in things like tech, companies push to be diverse. But unfortunately, a lot of people who are women, people of color, trans, LGBT, have not always been given opportunities to thrive in a technical environment. And in fact, one of my coworkers this week brought up something. She said that we do a disservice in recommending people in certain roles. So she said that like if you're Joe hiring manager and you're like, I worked at another company and I know Jimmy. She said 9 times out of 10, Jimmy that you're bringing over is not diverse based on who was on that management team. And so I think that she had the courage to really say that while referrals are great and we should refer great people in, we also have to keep in mind that sometimes it's limited who we refer in, and it's the same type of person. So I thought that was really interesting.
That is really interesting. And I know that it can be an act of courage for those who are the diverse hire,
Yes.
the diversity hire,
Yes.
to come in and be authentically themselves
Yes.
when you feel like you have to fit inside a box
Yep.
in order to get along with your team.
Right.
I know it was weird for me to come out and say that I had a wife and not a husband about like in November. And I can only imagine if that had been a visible difference instead of something that I could hide, how I would feel being in a workplace and trying to gel with a team that I
Yeah.
just met and being the diversity hire.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody knowing that I'm there because of diversity.
Yeah.
Because I have seen the looks that people get, like, ugh, the diversity, like,
And it's terrible.
it's terrible.
It's terrible.
Because you're already being biased.
Yeah,
and being prejudiced
Yeah.
before you've even seen what they can do.
Or what they can produce. What they
Right.
can produce. So I think that's interesting you bring that up, just that, how November seems like an act of bravery for you and your wife, bravery and courage, just kind of stepping out. How have you been able to continue to navigate courage after coming out?
Well, besides the fact that Pastor stepped on my toes today, before or after that? Because I know there have been certain family members that I have not texted back because of things that were said in anger on both sides. Won't even consider myself an exception. But it's like I have to be the courage to actually be the one to have the courage to step up and say, "Good afternoon,"
Yeah.
and like put on a face that is not my current face, which condemns me every time. Every time.
I can see how you're one of those people where your face gives it away.
Oh, my face gives everything away. If I am not prepared ahead of time and you say something, I'll be like, just, I can't
me. That's
keep it together. I've seen your face a couple times and I'm like, Marcus is me.
Yeah. My face gives it away. I can't
Every
help it. I cannot help it. Leslie's always like, fix your face, fix your face, fix your face, fix your
The
face.
number of times I've
Fix
heard
your
fix
face.
your face in my life. Oh, Lord.
It's difficult. It's difficult. April says, Antoine, I'm right there with you. I used to take zeros on oral reports in high school, but that had to do with bullying. Wow, I understand that about, public speaking. And then Alan says, direct action type political activity has really worked my courage muscles before, especially when the stakes are clear and high. Lots of feeling terrified, involved, and also lots of opportunities for insight, and it continues to be challenging. That is challenging.
That is.
I will say that, not to get political, but I will say that, my heart was, broken yesterday, just because I feel like there were 5, I feel like we are missing sometimes that there were 5 people that died. I feel like the news, we're not talking about
Nobody is talking about
the deaths.
the fact that it was back the blue until it wasn't.
Yes.
Until suddenly they were standing in your way. And that, to me, is the most important thing
Yes.
that happened. I mean,
Yes.
obviously the fact that Capitol Hill was even taken was beside the point. That the fact that nobody is talking about the names of those who died, even though I think at least 3 of them were white men.
Yes.
Nobody's talking about it.
No.
I think I've seen one guy's picture once on
One.
my timeline on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's not even, and it wasn't even a news source that shared
No.
it. It was like some Joe Schmo
Yeah.
saying, hey, by the way, this is one of the guys. I feel like we should be calling media out a little bit more
Yeah.
on the fact that, you'll say these people died during this protest, but not during this clear riot.
Yes.
You can call it what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just feel like that is something that if I'm going to call anything out politically, that's going to be something that I would call out
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. I feel like that is, that's what I feel like that's what's missing. I feel like it's still, that's not part of the conversation that we had 5 people that passed. And so, my heart is broken. I just hope, but my heart's been broken with this whole process. I just want to know, I want to have the courage to move past all this, but to also be able to continue to call out injustice. I want to be able to call out injustice.
That's one of the things that I want to personally work on is just because you find one politician more palatable than another,
Yes.
you still have to call out what is there
Right.
and what has not yet been fixed.
Right.
I remember the day after Biden was sworn in, I was like, all right, but remember, there are still children in cages.
Yes.
We still have to be aware that that
Yes.
is still happening. Now, even if he's taking steps, I think we need to watch those steps and make sure that they are justice-oriented and not
Yes.
just, well, we'll put them into the foster care service and not look for their parents.
Yep.
So they're taken care of,
Yep.
right? And that's not justice. That's just placating.
Yeah.
To me.
You're right. Wow. How do you feel in the elementary school as a teacher? And you said elementary, so you see development all the way up.
Yep.
How do you see children handle courage? Like, how do you see them handle?
They are
Courage.
courageous every day they come to school
Interesting.
because many of them are aware of the virus. They are aware of, even at the kindergarten level, germs are bad. They get it. They know what that is. They don't understand.
But that kind of breaks my heart too.
They exhibit very clear signs of childhood trauma.
Wow.
They cannot retain even the easy things that were easy for you and me to remember, like I don't want to call them stupid because they're very valid, but the stupid elementary songs that you learn in 2 minutes and you remember them for the rest of your life. They can't remember them 1 week later.
Wow.
And we sing it like 30, 40 times in one class. God bless my wife. She actually had to listen to me teach from home. And at the end of day 2, she moved her office.
Shout out to Tori.
Because that's how many times you sing one song. And yet, their little baby brains are so survival.
Yeah.
They're in survival mode. And they can laugh and they can be silly, and then they wear their masks wrong where it's under their nose, and you go, "Are you gonna pick your nose? Cover your nose." And they laugh and they think it's cute and they think they're funny. And then they pull it down and then they put it back up and they make a game out of it, which is fine because that's all they can understand. But they show courage every day just when they show up. And especially the older kids who really get it. They wear their masks correctly, they keep their social distance, and they are checking to make sure.
Oh, the kids are doing that now.
The kids are actually checking each other.
Wow.
Which is heartbreaking.
That is, I don't even know what to say to that.
Like, I have seen, like, 4th graders so far are the most on it with their social distance. They do not get within each other's social bubble. And they can have a great conversation with you, and they can have, like, great talks, but they maintain that distance, and they maintain their masks, and some of them wear 2 masks because they are not about getting sick.
But what about how even at the 4th grade level, how do they handle like recess? Or do kids still do recess?
They
That's the whole
do.
thing? Okay. How do they handle like recess and PE?
So PE is highly structured. There are so many rules in Fort Bend ISD that I cannot even tell you what they are. But like, they can't use equipment. They can't share equipment. They can't get in a circle. You can't stand in a circle.
And those are games.
Those are all of
The games are all basically in a circle in elementary.
90% of my own personal repertoire is circle games.
Yes.
And duck, duck, goose, you can't touch each
I
other.
was gonna say.
Can't touch each other on the head. You cannot touch each other. You can't be next to each other.
Wow.
And so, like, for recess, they're allowed to take their masks off, but they just run. And that's all they can do is just run and burn energy. But one of the silver linings that has come out of that, because they can't use playground equipment. Like, they can't use the jungle gyms, can't use the slides,
So
the
you meant
swings.
literally they're just running.
Literally just running. But what has come out of it, at least, because I was out in the portable last 9 weeks, so I would step out of my classroom just to get sunlight. And I would look out, it's usually during 1st grade recess, and they were genuinely playing with each other.
Wow.
So, like, not just playing next to each other, which is really common these days when everybody's connecting to other people through a phone or an iPad, but they were genuinely interacting with one another.
Wow.
Because they don't have toys to play with. They only have each other to play with.
Right.
So they're actually getting into play pretend and learning how to interact with other children. And it's this weird, they have so many rules, but kids are still finding ways to have fun and play together.
Interesting.
Which is like one of the silver linings in this is that they're learning how to be together, even if they can't be like playing hand clapping games.
Yeah.
Which
Hand clap like these.
yeah.
Wow.
Those and jump ropes were like my lifeline at recess because I hate running.
Yeah.
And kickball, and we can't do that either.
Wow.
There's so many things.
Wow. So just a few comments online. Leslie said we should have a moment of collective grieving for those that lost their lives for January 6th. I definitely agree. The lives of Capitol Police matter. It shouldn't be an expected, overlooked sacrifice. Gina says, I've been told you should expect to die, but we are humans, and I'm still upset with government for not making a bigger deal of them giving their lives to save theirs is total BS. Gina's a cop, so yeah.
And thank you for your service.
Yes. April Marie says, my heart was broken for 4 years, but January 6th killed my faith in our democracy. God rest the souls of those who died from January 6th and COVID. Cindy, yeah. Alan says, drawing attention to them might shine a light on what their superiors did to unnecessarily expose them without proper gear or support to a non-expected event. And that's another reason their lives and stories should be highlighted, not ignored. Isla says it was expected and not planned. And then Antoine says, to what we were just talking about, developmentally at that age, personal responsibility is a key feature of personality development and survival. Not a great time to be experiencing this kind of pandemic. Pray for the mental and emotional well-being of our children between the ages of 9 and 11 going through this pandemic. I can't imagine. I can't imagine just that cut up, like that. Like it, honestly, what you just said about fourth graders gives me chills. That they're just like, nope. Because do we now have a generation of kids who are going to
be touch-starved?
Yes.
And not understand why?
Yes.
When I showed those same things when I was in 6th grade, I was a very introverted person. I didn't like being around a lot of people. I liked being by myself and reading. My father thought I was suicidal because I was just alone all the time and did not want anybody near me. Those are signs of depression when you do that voluntarily. So we are forcing that onto our youth, and it is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
But it is still tragic.
Wow. Erlene Gilmore says, I'm encouraged by today's service. I've just launched my ministry's Women Awake, inspired and commissioned by the Holy Spirit. I had to summon courage. I love that.
Love it.
Antoine is my most ardent encourager, so I rise. Yes. Antoine says, and be fearful that their affection could harm. They're fearful now that their affection could harm others.
Yes.
Jim Comer says, I don't have to imagine it, Marcus. I see it 5 days a week because he's a teacher too. It's and miss you, Jim. My heart goes out to you as educators, just having to navigate this in this time.
And one of the things that I'm hoping to do to kind of heal, hopefully, is my prayer is that by next year we are able to at least have a vaccine for younger people so that when we can play games again, I can invite the current 5th graders, soon to be 6th graders, back to campus so they actually have a chance to play the games that they didn't get to play while they were really 5th graders.
Yeah.
And to have that be a community bonding time where we can say we made it and have fun and play and do, because like you can't do any of the folk dances that are all American folk dances.
Oh, right, yeah.
None of the square dancing.
No square dance. I was just going to say that.
I know, and square dancing was like my 4th grade highlight.
It was so much fun.
And I got to dance both the girls' part and the boys' part because I was a nerd. That hasn't changed. But they don't get it because they cannot hold hands.
Yeah.
And it kills me.
That kills me. Wow. As we continue to, because there's some people out here with kids, Are there any tips you would give to how we can help them through this period of this isolation?
First of all, hug your children. Hug your children, because they're not getting hugs from their teachers. They're not getting hugs from their friends. They don't get cuddle time. They don't get to climb all over each other in kindergarten like they usually do, where they like climb on top of each other and then one kid cries and then you have to go and fix, like, none of that is happening right now. They have very clearly defined sit spots. So hug your kids and talk to them about it. Using languages that they can understand to the best of your ability. Talk to them about their feelings, because their ability to articulate those feelings will be necessary when they have to do the work to emotionally undo what they must do now. Like right now, we have to be separated. That's going to have an effect on them later. Teaching them how to talk about what they are feeling and what they are experiencing when they can talk to a professional when they're older and still suffering from it will make all of the difference, and it will lessen the strain. The mental strain is what I'm seeing from a lot of them, because a lot of them are going through. I had one kid tell me that last week while we were online, my wants are also my needs because we're running short on food. Fourth grade boy, he's got a sister in kindergarten, 2 parents at home. So on paper, looks like not at risk. Short on food.
Wow.
And this kid is musically gifted. And to hear him say that, and he is struggling to retain, he's musically gifted and struggling to retain information. I can't imagine going to school hungry.
Ever.
My grandmother did, and the main reason she went to school is because her teacher fed her. And I can't imagine being home and unable to eat.
Yeah.
And still being expected to go to school.
Yeah.
So for
and
parents,
produce and pass and do well in class. I
pretend everything is normal.
Is normal.
You have to be my sense of normalcy as a child, and that's too much to expect of a 10-year-old. That's something I have to remind myself a lot, is I'm saying things and they're like, and I'm like, you are 10. You are 10 or 9. You're 9, okay. And that's the only way that I can remind myself, even as a teacher who sees them every day. So as a parent, I am not a parent, but I can only hope that my parents at home are talking to them on a regular basis, teaching them how to articulate their feelings, and loving on them. And if you can take some of that burden off of them to be normal, let them act out a little more. I know it's not really what we want, but they're under stress. They're under stress. They're in what I would call duress. Serious duress.
So with them acting out and being busy, it's not about like just because it's both. It's kind of a both and. It's like I don't have anything to do, but also like I am deprived. I feel like this deprivation. So that's like I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. How do you feel music has helped in this time with your kids? How do you feel music has helped?
I really saw it mostly last 9 weeks. Because last 9 weeks I was teaching at 2 different elementaries. One was the one that I'm currently at, and one was majority African American students, and the rest were mostly Hispanic and like maybe 2 white kids. So the music that I brought in, again, trying to maintain that relevance, the music that took them out of their situation and took them to a different situation where they were powerful or could contribute something. Their favorite was Skip to the Barbershop. Do you know that one?
No.
It's a rhyme.
Do it.
Where it's skip to the barber shop. I left my hat at the barber shop and 3 sticks of candy. one for you, one for me, and one for Sister Sally. So you change hat to like coat or whatever object, and they have to go get it.
Wow.
So you can't go until after the name Sally, because otherwise you're missing the point. And that was it was the first one that I did, and it was their favorite because they could contribute.
Yeah, yeah.
They got to get up and move and show what they had.
Oh, wow.
Rather than emphasizing what they didn't have,
Yeah.
which was each other and various other things. But you say, I left my shoe, and then they're all like, I got a shoe, and they're like running around and like throwing their shoes up in front of the camera because they get to be silly and to be children.
Yeah.
Scavenger hunts are great for that. And I tried really hard to find like absurd things that they should have, like a spoon. And one kid was like, I only have a spork. That counts. It's all right, baby.
It counts. It counts. That Popeye spork counts. That Popeye spork counts in my life. Yeah, that definitely counts.
Right.
Wow. Another thing I want to talk about courage is kind of going back to family. Do you think that while you've had the courage to try to deal with family, do you think it takes courage to figure out how to, does it take courage to figure out how to fit people back in your life? So do you identify when families wronged you, and then is there a period where you look to find ways to incorporate them back in, or are you saying that your courage with your family is saying, we will no longer be in communication because you can't exist in my new world?
I think it's both. I think it takes courage to do both. Because I've got one sister who I can't. We cannot speak to one another. We cannot be part of each other's lives because she cannot be trusted. And she has exhibited that she cannot be trusted. Anything she gets, she will weaponize. So to protect myself and my wife, we cannot. But other family members who are hateful out of ignorance, that's hard for me because it took me 2 weeks and I already had her name. And I already had the she, her pronouns. 2 weeks and I was already ready to go. So I don't understand how you can have known since the day after Christmas.
And it's still difficult.
And it's still, you can't understand why this would be difficult, why that would be a problem for me to hear. Like you can't understand why that joke would not land.
Yeah.
When, like, I've been sending you resources, I've told you my perspective, what I've seen and experienced, and you're still over here, you don't get it. So it's hard for me as someone who is highly adaptable to understand that for some people it will take years to get to where I am.
Yeah.
When I guess as I don't know what led to me being more adaptable than other people. I was
going to ask that, yeah.
Except maybe that I had a lot of change as a kid. Constantly. Every year we were in a different place.
I was going to say, because you were between Houston and Dallas for a long time.
When my parents divorced, I was 5. And I went to kindergarten at one school, and then I switched to a different school. And then after 3rd grade, I went to a different school. And then after 5th grade, we went all the way to Dallas. So, like, there was a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where it comes from. I don't know.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's hard for me to relate. So it's one of those, I need to extend grace for people who are different from me. And that's, I think, takes courage too. Because especially when you didn't have that problem, extending empathy when you're angry with someone, I think that takes a different kind of courage.
Yep. Alan says, my issue with family members is how they hurt people who are not me. So my forgiveness is really irrelevant, but I can't unsee or erase what I've witnessed. Amen. That's a tough one.
Tough.
Leslie says, it's tough, but safe space is important until you have the strength to deal with ignorance. It hurts. It also doesn't mean you hate someone because you set boundaries. That takes courage. Boundaries do take courage. I feel like that is something, in the last year he and I have had to do with family, and that I've had to do with, my dad and my stepmother and that whole area of my family. Just, it does take courage to say that when you don't feel comfortable in a space, or when you feel like you're going to be berated or unwanted, like, I'm just not going to invade your space. And we can be good or whatever you want to call it, but I don't have to interact with you to do that. Erlene says, I'm also an educator. I infuse moral courage in daily curriculum in order to awaken, stir up gifts and talents God has given us. Okay, Erlene, thank you. That's really good. That's really good. As you go into this next week, as we begin, and then April says, yes, Alan, I don't understand how some of my family members can support me and my wife, but have hate for others. Now that is...
Yes. Yes. How can we be the exception that proves the rule? Thank you, Richard Wagner. Go back to the dead. That was like, how can you consider me an exception, or my wife an exception?
Yep. I'm good with you, but them others.
Tell them again.
Yeah, I'm good with y'all, but like, I just can't stand it.
It's just everyone else.
It's everybody else. No, sis, it's you. You're the crazy one. You're crazy.
It's just everyone else. What other people do you know? I don't see them. I'm looking. Where are these people you're talking about?
So as we move into this next week, I know we're all going to be locked up, here in Texas, because it's like ice storming.
2 inches of snow. What do I do?
I mean, it's like everything is shut down. It's like we are shutting it needs to be, but it's just so funny to me.
One of my favorite stories from high school is when we got like 2 inches of snow. And one of my friends, her aunt was in from Virginia, was like, okay, just get the snow shovel out. And she was like,
let's go.
The what?
People down here don't know that life. They don't know that life. Leslie literally would not, when we lived in New York, I think the snow kind of started around like January. So from January to May, did not leave our apartment or the building. It is crazy. He is nuts. And he would like just go underground. Our church was, you go underground and get to the church. He was totally fine with that. For him to leave, there had to be like a hot cab waiting outside. He wanted to make sure that they had the heat on. I mean, these were all precursors to getting him out of the house.
But
y'all think I'm extra.
Get those hot hands.
Yeah, that's what he wants. But y'all think I'm extra. Y'all's pastor is extra. I'm very innocent. If y'all really knew the extra I put up with on Hold the Forest, you would get it. You would totally understand. But anyway, I am so glad I got to spend this time with you, Shelby.
Yes.
You got to do this again. You're going to be here, so you'll do it again.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Any final thoughts on courage before we let people go?
Authentic courage comes from being an authentic person. And false courage will never ring true, and it will always give out. That's all I have, really.
False courage will never ring true. I got to agree with that. False courage will never ring true. False courage, let me not say that, but I do kind of want to say it. False courage for me, it's the false courage for me. False courage for me it's the false courage for me. Because what false courage looks like for me is a quitting. And then, I'm just saying, it's a quitting and then getting on the mic and saying, oh, but it was really wrong. I'm just saying.
Don't look at my vote. Listen to what I'm telling you.
Just listen to what I'm saying. I'm not talking about anybody. I mean, their name kind of rhymes with McDonald, but that's what I'm talking about. Anywho, love y'all. Thank you, Shelby, for joining me today. And we will see you all next week. Everybody stay warm, stay safe. Choir will have no rehearsal this week because, we're iced in. I hope everybody has all their rations they need. But I love you all, and we will see you next Sunday. And it's going to be 70. Can you believe that? Bye. Happy Sunday.